The Golden State Warriors are the most confusing team in the NBA. One night they look like an actual solid team that knows what they're doing, and the next night they look like a bunch of dudes who just met in the parking lot outside. It's been about 1/4 of the season so far, and the Warriors still seemingly have no identity. Obviously, you have Steph Curry, you have Jimmy Butler, Draymond, whatever. But as a collective team, there's really not much there. And the only real consistent theme with this team is inconsistency. At the very start of the season, Golden State was actually looking like a strong title contending team, backed by Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler's brilliance. They took out the Nuggets in a thriller, beat the Lakers in the opener, and took out the Grizzlies and Clippers. Granted, the Lakers didn't have LeBron at the time, but still worth noting. That's an impressive start to a season, taking out 4 separate, seemingly quality teams basically in a row. But it didn't last long. Immediately after their impressive start, they would lose to the Bucks without Giannis and fall to the Pacers, who literally had 0 wins at the time. It's, as I said, inconsistency. And this trend would continue to happen as later down the line they would lose to the Magic without Paolo Banchero playing and the Rockets without KD. But then out of nowhere, when Steph and Jimmy are both out, Draymond is in foul trouble, down nearly 20 at halftime. The Warrior role players somehow make it a game against the 20-1 Oklahoma City Thunder. It just makes no sense. Last season, prior to the Jimmy Butler trade, the inconsistency of play was basically affected by Steph Curry essentially being the last man standing, a one-man wrecking crew that was relied upon to do nearly everything offensively. Jimmy came in and looked to had solved the issue enough to where Golden State was contending again. But now it looks like the one-man wrecking crew problem has just transformed into a 2-man wrecking crew problem. Outside of Steph and Jimmy, there's really no consistent scoring option. Kuminga is clearly just not good enough to be relied upon for offensive production, and Moody has been giving some great offensive contributions, but that's simply just not enough in today's NBA. It's clear that depth is becoming of more importance given the 2 teams that made it to the finals last season were the best depth teams in the league, and the Warriors just don't have that. The game against the Magic is a perfect example of this. Steph and Jimmy doing the heavy lifting, combining for 67 points, and the rest of the team basically just getting their steps in for the day. The Warriors had 3 players in double figures compared to the Magic's 6. Sure, Steph and Jimmy were the 2 highest scoring guys in that game, but that's the whole problem. There are only 2 guys. Basketball is a team sport, and it's a lot easier to let 2 guys simply out-talent you versus trying to stop 6 separate guys creating offense for each other. In prior years, the Warriors' offense involved multiple threatening players on the floor at the same time. Not necessarily all-star level players, but simply guys that can hit a shot when they're wide open. This is not the case anymore. Steph Curry still draws the defense away from his teammates, creating tons of open looks, whether that be slips, creating 2v1 scenarios, or wide open threes. Typically, converting on the slips and 2v1 scenarios is no problem, but knocking down the open shots is a very big one. Hitting open shots is what spaces the floor out, allowing those slips and 2v1 scenarios to be more effective. If the team isn't hitting shots, there's no point in closing out, and clogging the paint will destroy the only other team-oriented offense Golden State has left, which essentially dwindles down to what happened against the Magic, Steph and Jimmy doing everything. But then Steph got injured.
For the fourth quarter, that's the first time after that he just didn't seem right.
Without Steph, the Warriors are essentially losing most of their offense, because even if he's not necessarily scoring, the system is run with the idea that he's on the floor. I mean, he literally put the team on his back to beat the Spurs twice. The constant motion, screening, cutting all becomes a lot less threatening when Steph isn't playing, yet the same offense is still run. Trying to run an offense that revolves around a guy with arguably the strongest gravity of all time, without him, creates stagnant offense. Against the Pelicans, they displayed exactly that. There really was no flow for most of the game, and a big reason the Warriors still came out with the win was because the Pelicans were just that much worse. It's not very often you can get a win without your best player while shooting 40% from the field and 25% from 3. That is, unless your opponent shoots a whopping 37 and 23 split. But despite the offensive flow being out of sorts at times, this actually turned out to be kind of a good thing. The main problem with, let's just call them the other guys, is that they don't have any confidence to create their own offense or create offense for each other. They're simply playing within the system and not adapting to what's given. Oftentimes there are easy floaters or pull-up mid-range shots available and nobody is taking them because they're so busy trying to get a three-pointer or a free layup. Not taking advantage of what the defense is giving you creates bad shots later in the shot clock, usually a last-second three-point attempt. In the first half against the Thunder, that's exactly what happened, just passing the ball around and then shooting a brick. But in the second half, everything started to turn around. The role guys started to create their own offense and expand the offense in general. They were no longer mindlessly following the system, but simply out there playing basketball. And when they finally started doing that, they were able to compete with the best team in the league without their two best players playing. Then, as they continued to adapt the offense to essentially a starless offense, they started to flow a little bit more and more, nearly beating the Sixers after being down 24 points, actually stealing a win over the Cavs on the road, and then obliterating the Bulls in Chicago. All competitive games without Steph playing because they simply were just playing basketball. And then you finally get Steph Curry back. Everything is supposed to be better. The role guys have had time to gain more confidence and get more comfortable doing more on the floor. And then you add in your best player again. But nothing has changed. Steph Curry is still Steph Curry, dropping basically 40 on the worst whistle in NBA history.
That's a foul on McDaniels. Watch this.
The Warriors are not going to challenge this, but
that's terrible. That is terrible. That's on Steph.
So Steph's fighting through the screen.
Just grabs him and pulls him down.
This is a foul on Steph Curry?
What are we looking at here?
Well, John Goble called it from the baseline.
He had a bad angle.
He had too many bodies. He couldn't see it. John's an excellent official.
And still losing to teams without their best player playing.
Moody, that will do it for the final score. But Minnesota, they are legit, and as is the elite teams in the Western Conference.
The hope for Steph's return was that the others would continue to look for their own offense without relying on Steph and Jimmy to do everything for them. Had that become a consistent theme, the Warriors would be a significantly different team. But it looks more like they're the same team that basically made no sense earlier. But maybe it was just a fluke, maybe it wasn't. Only time will tell if they can fully mesh as a team, or if this team is stuck in a state of confusion.